Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Hello and welcome to Game Over Winnipeg. The Winnipeg Jets have defeated the Utah Hockey Club by a score of 5-2 in the most exciting thing to happen in the Central Division this evening. And before we get into the game, before we talk about the game that was this fine Friday, January 24th, shift into Hyperdrive and get ready to have some fun with your news source for all the biggest stories in hockey, bringing a unique style of broadcasting and commentary with a Quebecois flavor. Hyperdrive Hockey combines top-tier hockey analysis, big stories, pop culture, and a damn fun atmosphere that will drive debate, make you think, and more. Join Max, Daphne, and Kevin every Tuesday and Thursday for your fill-in on the hockey world. Watch on YouTube on the Game Over Network channel, or subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon. Head to our website at thegameovernetwork.com for more. And what a lovely game it was. Again, welcome to Game Over Winnipeg. My name is Brendan Labarre, and if you are so inclined, if you've gotten this far, make sure you're liking, subscribing, supporting our show. It's super easy and free to like and subscribe. Really helps our algorithm. Thank you. The Utah Hockey Club were defeated by the Winnipeg Jets for the score of 5-2. And we are going to start the show like we've been starting the show lately with a little bit of highlights and lowlights. Who's been good for the Winnipeg Jets in their recent win and who has not been. So if you think you have someone who was really good tonight or someone who maybe wasn't too good, throw it down there in the comments and we can add them to the list. So for my highlight of the game, I think it's got to be the Muffin Man, Cole Perfetti. And if you've not quite if you haven't been around Game Over Winnipeg for quite a long time, we call Cole Perfetti the Muffin Man. We means me, because if you ever seen Cole Perfetti shoot the puck, comes off his stick like a muffin. And you know what? He got a 3-pack of muffins today. He went to Costco. He got the nice big muffins, the ones that come in that giant pack that you'll never eat the whole one. But Cole Perfetti had three goals. Really nice play from him. And with him, it was like, one thing that we kind of got advertised for us as Cole Perfetti as this guy who super high skill, and he fell in the draft to the Winnipeg Jets because he wasn't a great skater. And with his kind of play tonight, I think especially on his second goal, you saw what he's kind of turning himself into, as more of a rugged forward, more of a little bit of a, I wouldn't say like a pest, but he's just really strong along the boards. He's not very tall, but he is boxy. He's got those broad shoulders, and he uses them to kind of gain advantage in puck skills. You kind of see a little bit more directness, a little bit more just rugged play from the guy, which is really nice to see. And we have Bleach Champagne. Fife, you got 27, sure, helped on the last goal. Yeah, for sure. Nikolai Ehlers, thank you for commenting, Fife. Nikolai Ehlers really helped on the last goal. Was able to get that over to Cole Perfetti. So he just got, he got a nice, free, easy muffin there. What a lovely time to be Cole Perfetti. And then for the, the low light of the game, it's really hard to find a low light, and it's really hard. You don't want to put it on someone who, lower in the lineup. Hayden Fleury didn't have his best game tonight. I don't think he needed to. Logan Stanley made some mistakes, but I think when it comes to who the low light is, I think it's kind of got to go to the top line. The top line, they seem like they're pretty invisible out there, especially when you score 5 in a game. They score none of them. It's been pretty consistent that they've kind of struggled to score 5 on 5. And I think the top line, we'll get into like some more of why I think that is a little bit later, but in the second period, but I think just that top line not finding ways to score and kind of being the less effective out of the 4 lines tonight. So let's get into the game breakdown. The game started and you were kind of thinking, okay, the Winnipeg Jets got kind of destroyed by Utah on Monday. They kind of made a little bit of fools out of the Winnipeg Jets. And a part of that was Connor Ingram. I don't think Connor Ingram played well on Monday. I think the Winnipeg Jets made him look good. And I think Connor Ingram, you watch him play, and he's got this like 889 save percentage, and we talked about this on Monday, reminds us a lot of Andre Pavelec in the way he's just kind of out, moving around, really aggressive at times. He reeled that back in a little bit tonight, but just a guy who it seems like you should be able to take advantage of him, and his stats definitely show that. And then in the first period, it felt like a really low event game. and there was no real big grade A scoring chances. The Jets were having trouble kind of getting in the slot, but the Utah Hockey Club was too. And so you don't really mind that trade-off, especially when you have Connor Hellebuyck in net. You have a better chance of scoring a low percentage shot than the other team. And one thing that did happen, there was a little bit of a common theme in this game. Mark Scheifele gets a puck to the glove, gets hurt, and you're like, hey, no, Mark, you're not allowed to get hurt. Like, get back here. Luckily, he came back. But while he was gone, the Winnipeg Jets got a power play. And one thing that was really frustrating on this power play, personally, is watching them really try to force the movement, try to force the entry. But the one guy that they wouldn't give it to, it felt like a last resort, was Nikolai Ehlers. And then they get to Nikolai Ehlers. Nikolai Ehlers just cuts along the left side of the boards. Gabriel Velarde drives the defenseman back, and he's able to rip it right across to who else? Cole Perfetti, the Muffin Man. He gets him right over there on Drury Lane, and he makes no mistake. Takes a one-timer. It's one of those ones where, because of his height, because of his number, you kind of thought that was Kyle Connor there for a moment. And then, thank God, Mark Scheifele gets back. I think if the Jets lose another center, I might be the next person coming in and playing for the Winnipeg Jets. I can take your face off. And then in the second period, you have a power play that kind of continues from a Gabriel Velarde penalty. And in this play, there became this common theme that the Utah, I keep on wanting to call them the Utah Yeti. The Utah Hockey Club, that's real. That's not their fake name that, shout out to Johnny Superbman, made up and then kind of had going. They're kind of being the trademark right now. And it was just a play where they kind of drove the Winnipeg Jets back in front of their own net on the penalty kill. They're able to get it up into high ice, go low to high action, which we see the Winnipeg Jets do a lot when they're having successful games. And then Michael, is his name Michael? Kesselring is able to just rip the puck. No one's in front of Dave Schmaltz, and no one's tying up Dave Schmaltz. I'm messing up names today. Nick Schmaltz, and Nick Schmaltz is able to deflect the puck in, and that's just one thing we talk about. When the Winnipeg Jets get scored on, a lot of it's because the Winnipeg Jets sometimes have trouble tying up sticks, getting their guys in front, and on this time, it was Neil Pionk, just a really unfortunate just play to happen from a guy who had such a good last game. And then the next thing that kind of happened is Dylan Samberg also blocks a shot. And like, this is like a time where you're like, you that's the second Winnipeg Jet who went down two really key plays. And you're like, guys, stop blocking shots. It's January 24th. You don't need to do it. And then so he gets hit with a shot. He looks pretty banged up. That one got him kind of up high. Thankfully, it wasn't the foot again. I'm sure he's still wearing something for that foot. Luckily, he came back a little bit. But one beautiful thing that happened is David Gustafsson gets on a point streak. This might be his first point streak in the NHL of 2 games. Just a weird Dylan DeMello rims it around the board. It kind of pops up into the front of the net. You kind of felt like something like this might happen with the way Connor Ingram has chosen to play the goaltending position. Gets in there, and then he's able to just tap it in the net. Just putting it in. Really easy, really simple for David Gustafsson. And then, do you know what Appleton does? He gets hit by another shot. Again, guys, and this time in the offensive zone, just everywhere. And then a weird thing happened. Thankfully, there was this play where Rasmus Kapari was in front of the net, scored a goal. Nino Niederreiter gets called for. It was actually on the same play where Appleton gets hit with the shot. Nino Niederreiter gets called for incidental contact on the goalie, and it really stinks because the Winnipeg Jets could have gone up from a guy who has really been playing well in Rasmus Kapari, and luckily this goal didn't matter. But it's kind of this ongoing trend over the past 4 weeks where there's a really just kind of weird series going back to the Anaheim game in December, where they're in overtime and they get called off for the net being off, and then the Ducks kind of have the puck and the net goes off again, doesn't get called, the Jets lose in overtime, but kind of a weird sequence of refereeing. And I think if you're an Edmonton Oilers fan, I don't need to tell you that the NHL's refereeing isn't always up to par. And then we get into the third period, another goal where they go low to high. Clayton Keller crosses ice to John Marino, gets it up to Barrett Hayden, and Barrett Hayden just rips it home. And I think one thing we don't say too often is that was a goal that Connor Hellebuyck could have had. I think that the Winnipeg Jets were really good at collapsing in, And they sometimes when you collapse and you screen your goalie, Connor Hellebuck had a wide open view at that one. And I'm not one to blame the goalie too often, but I think that Connor Hellebuck, especially as he's my favorite player, could have gotten that one right there. All right, and then we got our second Cole Perfetti goal. And this one is just a real good team effort. All the fellas are in on it, right? So Nikolai Ehlers, as he was so good at today, enters the zone, drives left, and does a nice little back pass to Cole Perfetti, who gets the initial shot. And one of those things with the shot that happens is that it goes up in the air, gets lost, no one sees it, but Dylan DeMello, who's at the point, he's able to get the puck, corral it, shoot it on net. Vladimir Nemestikov is able to handle it, pass it over to Perfetti. Perfetti puts it in the net, which is wonderful because Cole Perfetti seems like he scores in bunches. I think on the broadcast they said that was his 9th goal of the year, but he's scored 6 of his goals, but he's only scored in 6 games. So it's like, okay, he scores when he scores a goal, there's a 50% chance of him to score a second goal, but he just doesn't score that many goals. So that was his 9th of the season. And then one unfortunate play, Logan Stanley was in his own end, takes a weak backhand to go up the boards, and he gets picked off. And I don't want to pick on the guy, but I kind of want to show some duality here because I believe it was Nick Bajukstad who takes the puck, rips it off the crossbar, and you're like, oh my gosh, Logan, we can't be doing that. If this is a playoff game, like that's just so unacceptable. But then Logan Stanley rebounds from that, doesn't dwell on his mistake too long, and he's able to be at the point, make a really nice, almost backdoor feed for Mark Scheifele, which doesn't go in. But it's nice to see that he doesn't go off, he doesn't dwell on his mistake, and he's able to make a really nice play from his offside on the blue line like Scott O'Neill kind of wants him to. And then we have something I didn't think we'd see today. Nikolai Ehlers, he's a guy who tends to get breakaways, okay? But he's not a guy who tends to deke. When Nikolai Ehlers, Michael Kesselring is at the point, and Nikolai Ehlers just challenges him, and he's able to squeak the puck clean from him, and he goes on a breakaway, and then he turns around. And if you've been watching Nikolai Ehlers for any amount of time, I thought he was going to take a slap shot. Because Nikolai Ehlers, there's nothing this man loves more. He probably has a girlfriend. I don't believe he has kids. But no matter what, his mom, his dog, whoever, this man loves taking slap shots more than he loves to breathe oxygen. And one thing I've never seen out of this repertoire, they don't even like him taking shootouts. He just kind of waits, goes in, and goes to the backhand right along Connor Ingram's pad. Super clean, kind of a Kucherov-esque goal on this one. Absolutely beautiful. And then Ehlers is able to hand the puck off to Cole Perfetti so the Muffin Man can complete the hat trick. And just a really nice game from that second line in general. I think Vladimir Nemestikov coming back looks really good. It's still not a line configuration I'm super happy with at the moment, but just him coming back, he looks a lot better than when he left. And with like Cole Perfetti, Nikolai Ehlers combined for, I'm not going to say how many points they combined for because I don't know. And then, yeah, just a really wonderful 5-2 game for your Winnipeg Jets. And with that, if you are looking for ways to help an upstart media company employing over 30 young journalists and analysts across Canada, or if you have a few bucks kicking around, you can head over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/thegameovernetwork. There you can find multiple tiers featuring different rewards and goodies for helping us grow. There's extra access, exclusive perks behind the scenes, Discord benefits, merch discounts, opportunities to give us feedback. You can join us for special shows live where you can interact with hosts as we launch more ways to improve your experience. I believe there's also a newsletter coming, lots of stuff, lots of cool things. But if you don't have anything to offer, just liking, subscribing, super easy way to help the Game Over Winnipeg channel. And with that, let's go into the second period where we have more of a overarching view of what the Winnipeg Jets season is looking like. And I think there's a few different ways we can go here. We can talk about Cole Perfetti, which I think we kind of touched on that. We'll kind of skip past that. We talked about him as a highlight if you didn't see that. Now that was at the beginning of the show. We talked about him, what a nice game he's had in kind of the evolution of what he kind of means to this team. He's kind of taken on more of a board battling role, which is really good because the Winnipeg Jets in their, I guess we're just talking about it. The Winnipeg Jets in their forward combinations really seem to have definite roles. You have your left winger, who is your more offensive guy, the shooter on the line, your Kyle Connor, your Nikolai Ehlers, because there's a time where Nikolai Ehlers and Perfetti switched wings. So Nick was on the left, Perfetti plays the right now. And with that, these are the guys they play F3, and they're mainly in charge of the back checking. And with that, Cole Perfetti, Cole Perfetti's taken on more of a board battling role because the positions on this team are so defined, and I hope that kind of switches a little bit in playoffs because that feels like the type of thing that can get super easy to counter. But for regular season, game over game, the guys like Velarde, Appleton, and especially Iafallo on that right side, they do more board battling, more digging it out of the corners to get it up to those shooters who are usually up high in the zone. And with that, Cole Perfetti's really turned into this nice board battling player who makes great defensive impact. And even though he doesn't have the shot and he isn't the biggest guy, he uses his width, he uses his playmaking ability to make plays in that way. And I think with that line, sometimes when they get caught going on the rush, it's not the best trio for that, which kind of stinks when you have a guy like Nikolai Ehlers who can skate that well, go that fast, and make plays on the rush. But also but when they get in the zone, they start making plays. Nikolai Ehlers is doing the skating for them, and Nemestikov can kind of, be a bumper, and Perfetti's kind of taking this net front role, is able to make these plays out of the corner. Really good for him, and he gets rewarded with 3 goals today, which is really nice to see. One, the power play, which is kind of more of a one-timer-ish goal, but he's really kind of, you can see the steps in his game coming, which is really nice to see, especially after getting scratched for 4 out of 5 playoff games last year. Another thing that kind of came up today is the Winnipeg Jets seem to kind of be doing some different things in the defensive zone. They look like they are really committing to a man-to-man when things go wrong. And really what that kind of stems into is if you're committing to a man-to-man, everyone covers everybody, everyone covers one guy. What that really means is if one person loses a step, if one person misses out on an assignment, then the whole thing kind of breaks down. You're really susceptible, really vulnerable to penalties when you run this play. And you saw that with the Dylan DeMello penalty in the second period when he loses a battle, and then it's like, okay, well, he's going to be breaking free here, so I got to take this extra step, I got to reach in. And you see that in the defensive zone where they kind of, collecting my thoughts here, where they are in the zone, and when they lose a guy for good, or just seemingly, and that's where they score their goals. So many tips come off just peeling off your guy, and it almost becomes frustrating because it's like, okay, when you're losing, when you're breaking down these battles, turning things into a 50-50 when the Winnipeg Jets have such a hard time generating offense on most nights lately, especially at 5-on-5, it kind of gets frustrating when these little breakdowns can lead to offense for the other team. Another thing we should talk about is Nikolai Ehlers scored his 500th point tonight, which is just a great. He's such a good player for this team. He was supposed to be almost out of the lineup coming into this game. He was sick for the morning skate. They called up Brad Lambert. I would have liked to see Brad Lambert in this game, actually. And I think that with Nikolai Ehlers, if he would have been out tonight, he really would have shown what this team looks like without him. We had that stretch earlier in the season. When he's not out there, the power play doesn't click. Mark Scheifele missed their power play opportunity today. Didn't matter because when Nikolai Ehlers touched the puck, he got like one touch on this thing, and he made the goal happen all by himself. And I think just with his speed, with his smarts, with his dynamic ability, when he's on his game, he reaches points that no other Jets forward on this team can reach. He's the only player that can seemingly make something out of nothing. And it's just, when we talk about players who win playoff series for you, I think you can put Nikolai Ehlers almost in that category because you can have times where you need a goal and he can generate a goal for you out of nowhere, just like he did on his breakaway goal today, because he has this elusive skill set of speed, of smarts, of just hands, where he can generate these plays by himself and make these plays by himself that result in goals that come out of nowhere. And that is such an elite skill, and that is something that the Winnipeg Jets don't have too much of. And they're really going to miss him if he's gone, and I really hope they sign him to a contract. But I think one thing they're kind of looking for is they're kind of, with Winnipeg, um, not selling out, losing money, whatever you want to say. I'm not getting to the financial side, but they might not want, but they might just be looking for what the cap looks like in the next 3 years. It seems like, with a report from like Alan Walsh, is they're going to kind of know what the next 3 years are going to look like pretty soon. And with that, you can kind of get a better outlook of what your salary cap will kind of look like going forward, especially with Ehlers off the book this year, Kyle Connor off the book next year, and those are two guys. Gabriel Velarde also off the books this year. And I think that is such an interesting just conundrum that they have. And I don't actually, interesting is a different word, because I think with Nikolai Ehlers, he might feel where he hasn't spent a second on the first line this year. Well, he has, but like he's never started the game there. They finally got the power play rule he deserved, and he's like a point per game. I don't think you can discredit him. He's a first line player in the NHL, but I think they don't credit him. They don't value him the way they should as an elite hockey player, and it really, really sucks. And if they lose him, they're gonna lose what makes that second line a second line. And I don't know if they can. I don't know if I can financially recover from this. I don't think they can recover from a loss of number 27 on this team. And then to kind of the flip side of that, the first line over the past like couple of weeks, it's been tough for them. They haven't been able to kind of score at 5-on-5 consistently. And by that, I mean they haven't been able to do it at all. In the last few games, it's become pretty apparent that these guys don't, it feels kind of stale. It feels like they're trying things a little bit too harshly, a little bit too quickly. They go out there and they really try. As soon as they cross the blue line, they're looking for plays, and they're not willing to just go and do the work. They cross the blue line and they start looking around. They're doing things. They don't go in. They don't go deep. They don't go down low and come back up, just like the Utah Hockey Club was using to, like, the strategy going down low, getting back up high in order to kind of cycle, create chaos like the Winnipeg Jets did on Perfetti's second goal. It feels like they try and rush things. They go out there, they make a pass right away, gets picked off, they have to come all the way back, and they feel like they're iPad kids out there. They have to be stimulated. They have to go out there and ensure that at least something's happening. If we turn over the puck, at least that's something. We don't have the patience for this anymore. Five says 27-55-13 would look pretty good with the first line lows as of late. Yeah, for sure. And I think that 27-55-13 is probably the best trio of forwards you could make in terms of a trio that we've seen for long periods of time that works. But I just think that they are so deadly afraid of splitting up Connor and Scheifele, and maybe that was a promise in Scheifele's contract or something they're doing to try and recruit Kyle Connor, because they value Kyle Connor just almost a Achilles heel level. Like it's almost there. The thing that might break the camel's back for him each and every year is they think that this guy is the generational talent on the Winnipeg Jets, when in reality they don't have one. And it just kind of stinks where it limits the creativity in your roster buildup, and it limits your options in terms of what you can do. We've seen them like almost be married. You see them, what they put out here today, and you can see if Adam Lowry comes back, they're just going to plop him in for Kapari, and we're right back where we started, where we have a top six, bottom six, which no one in the league does anymore. And I think that if you reflect on the Stanley Cup champions past, teams that go top six, bottom six, you think of a team like Tampa, where their third line was Coleman, Yanni Gourde, and Barclay Goodrow. But I think with the Tampa Bay example, those guys had a little bit more punch. Yanni Gourde went on to like get 50 points, whatever. Have a really nice contract for himself playing in Seattle, available at the trade deadline. You see that Blake Coleman scored 30 goals last year, but the guys on this bottom, on the third line for the Winnipeg Jets, don't have that offensive output. Adam Lowry's never scored 40 points, never mind 30 goals. And I think that Nino Niederreiter might have a little bit of that, but they don't have it as a trio. And I think with that, not only are you losing offense there compared to the Tampa Bay example, but you don't have the I almost said McKinnon, Kucherov, the Stamkos, the point. You just don't have that top level offense, and you also don't have that secondary offense to complement it. And I think that they're just looking in the wrong place of who's comparable for them as a roster buildup. And if that happened, who would you make the second line? If they went 27, 55, 13, I think that the roster combination in terms of who carries the water, you would need to make Adam Lowry the second line center, because I don't think you could be Nemestikov. You would need someone who drives the bus a little bit more, because the difference in terms of play driving from Nikolai Ehlers to Kyle Connor is so vast, so different, that you would definitely need Adam Lowry to be on the second line. I don't know who the right winger would be. Probably Alex Iafallo. I think we would just try that trio again with him instead of with Kyle Connor instead of Nikolai Ehlers. And then the third line, we can just go back to Nino Niederreiter, Cole Perfetti, and I would like to see Brad Lambert play between them just one time, please, so we know what we have. And yeah. What else do we got? We have some other things. I talked about the top 9, top 6 kind of conundrum. We talked about the iPad Kid line, the ones that need stuff to go on. And yeah, I think we'll move on to the second most exciting thing the third most exciting thing that happened in the Central Division, which is the Mikko Rantanen trade. So with that, let me know what you think of the Mikko Rantanen trade. The Mikko Rantanen trade. If you have any thoughts on that, type them in the comments while I do this ad read. Wasn't Cirelli their third line center for most years? In their Stanley Cup years, their second line started with Cirelli, and he took a lot of the hard matchups, but their third line in those cup years was Blake Coleman with Yanni Gord and Barclay Goodrow, 2 of which they got at the trade deadline. So if you're enjoying the show and like it so far, you probably want more of this, right? Well, make sure you hit the like button on this video, click and subscribe on our channel, and make sure that you check the notification bell so you're alerted every time we go live, or you can follow me on Twitter. Most of what I tweet out is just telling you I'm going live. If you're listening to our podcast, please give us a 5-star rating and even write a positive review. If you really like us, make sure you go follow us on your favorite social media platforms. They're all down below, right by the like button, right by the subscribe button. Make sure you're hitting those while you're down there. All right, so we're in the third period. This is where I can talk about wherever I want to talk about. And I want to talk about the biggest trade, I think someone said, who is the best player to be traded in season? And I think this is the biggest trade since Marian Hossa, which is an example someone pulled up. And so let's pull up the trade here. All right, we have Frank Seravalli. Let's make this big. Yeah, look at that. Bet you didn't know I could do that live, eh? That's crazy. So I'm going to sit over here. All right, so this is the trade. This is the thing that really is shaking up the Central Division in which the Winnipeg Jets play. So the Colorado Avalanche, they shipped off Mikko Rantanen. It's crazy. He'd be the best player on like 25 teams, but he is the third best player on the Colorado Avalanche. And they ship him out to the Carolina Hurricanes. And then in return, they get Martin Necas, Jack Drury, who is like a Rasmus Kupari level player, a second and a fourth. And then the Chicago Blackhawks, they lose Taylor Hall. They take on 50% of Rantanen's salary, and they get a third round pick from which was originally the Carolina Hurricanes pick, or their own return from Carolina. Interesting. So it's like it's gonna be like a high second there. And then Blackhawks also send Taylor Hall to Carolina, which is very interesting. They get 2 wingers at around $11 million in cap hit. They shed about, I believe it's 7.5. Interesting use of cap space from those guys. What's Fife saying? What do the Jets have to do to answer the Avs in your opinion? We'll definitely get into that. Baby Yoda says bad trade. Yikes. It's like, yeah, bad trade. Yeah, we're not going to be talking about the Chicago Blackhawks here. That's not interesting. They didn't get too much for their value in terms of taking on $5 million and shedding Taylor Hall. That they might think that's a positive thing. I'm not too sure, but the Carolina Hurricanes wanted him, and when the Carolina Hurricanes want your player, you should hang up. What do the Jets have to do? I think we'll talk about the trade, and then we'll get in terms of what the Jets should do in response to this. I think with the Colorado Avalanche, and I don't think with the Carolina Hurricanes aspect of this trade really matters in terms of us as Winnipeg Jets fans. I think that with the Colorado Avalanche getting rid of Mikko Rantanen in terms of more long-term pieces, such as Martin Necas, maybe they really like him. Maybe they have another play in terms of getting another player to really help round out that roster. And they're kind of looking for to make multiple stabs at this cup in the next few years, as opposed to one with the better player. But I think what this means for the Winnipeg Jets is it is wide open. They got Necas is no Rantanen. Absolutely agree, Baby Yoda. That'd be like the Jets trading Kyle Connor. I'd trade Kyle Connor for the right piece. For sure. And I think with Mikko Rantanen out of the picture, it's completely wide open. And I think your job as the Winnipeg Jets is you might finally be in a position where you are one player away from being able to go tit for tat with this team. Colorado fans must be pissed. I would probably be pissed if I was a Colorado fan, because I would want you to go for the cup every single year. And unless they make a move, Kevin Weeks also posted a picture of Pittsburgh, and there's like other circlings that there was bigger things going on with bigger trades in the NHL in the past 48 hours. And then Kevin Weeks posted a picture of Pittsburgh, and there's all these things circulating. This isn't something you can pull from. I'm not a reputable source, but people are kind of thinking, is Sidney Crosby on his way to Colorado? And that is a lot of hearsay. Again, I'm no source. Colorado just screwed themselves. Yeah, hopefully they can sign Necas for just a long time, because if not, then they're not even getting more advantage here. But I think that the Winnipeg Jets, in order to kind of counteract this, go out and get the best player available. There is a player out there. His name is Elias Pettersson. We talked about this a few weeks ago. He is what could be your version of the Jack Eichel trade. And we always say the Jack Eichel trade is something that we say on this show, is that the Jack Eichel trade is something where the Winnipeg Jets really missed out on. You can't complain that nobody wants to come to Winnipeg, and then when a star player doesn't have any trade protection, you don't even try. And I think with the Winnipeg Jets, if you go out and get Elias Pettersson, and it's not as expensive as it could be, because it seems like they were trying to trade JT Miller, and maybe, just maybe, they've kind of reflected on being like, okay, this is too difficult when we have the other guy who doesn't have trade protection, who doesn't have a say in this whole thing. And I think that if you can go out, if you can trade Perfetti, I actually don't care who you trade. You can trade anyone on the roster besides Morrissey or Hellebuck. You can trade Perfetti. I don't even know. You could trade Kyle Connor in this package if you really want to. But going out and getting a star player where the ceiling is, you raise your ceiling to a certain degree, taking another stab at it. And hopefully you can go out there and get just your version of the Jack Eichel trade, I think. Just going out there, getting the best player available, getting a guy who can be a 110-point player, a guy who could win a Selke trophy, a guy who can win individual hardware and maybe bring the Stanley Cup for you. Oh, we got people popping off here now. Yeah, and Fife says, with the cap going up to $90 million, it's going up pretty significantly in the next few years. Any long-term contract like Elias Pettersson is going to be going down by yourself. The Manitoba Ball Hockey Association, that's got to be Barry. How's it going, Barry? Why did Colorado screw themselves? I don't know. But when your enemies are making mistakes, you do not interrupt them. Isn't that's got to be from Moneyball. But yeah, Chicago, if they're going to make stupid things happen, we don't care. We let them. We encourage that from these people. Champagne Fife says, you have to make those trades. You do have to make the trades. When people like Elias Pettersson, when people that good are available, you got to do it, especially when they're under contract. It's like tricking them to come to Winnipeg. You put them on the plane, you blindfold them, they wake up in Winnipeg. Beautiful. Love it. Baby Yoda says, suddenly the Jets' nemesis right now is Vegas, and I don't see Colorado or Dallas getting in their way. Honestly, though, you think about, in terms of Vegas, they've lost to Vegas in 2018, they lost to Vegas in 2023. When it comes to Vegas, is that even a thought, right? Because in order to get to the third round, you got to win the first round and the second round. And I don't think you really give a dang about what they are doing. You don't even consider them, because the teams you have to go through are, if the Jets win the division, the wild card, and then the winner of kind of a Dallas Colorado series, or Minnesota, I think, at this point. And even if not, even if you don't win the division, then you're back where you were last year, where you're facing one of the better teams in the Western Conference. And I think that we don't really care about the Pacific Division right now. Even with Vegas, they might be the top dog in the West, but are the Winnipeg Jets even a playoff team? You think about the way they started. They started 15-1, and they're kind of treading 500 since then. They've won almost as many games as they've lost, and are other way around. It's like they're like 17-16, something like that, something mediocre. But you got to be able to just go out and raise the floor of what this team can do. And then we got Manitoba Ball Hockey Association. Again, that's Barry Waddell. Go look up his stats in the ball hockey season this year. He's always crazy. They got a really good player still with Paramount, his contract, and got rid of a player that was going to cost $14 million in terms of contract. Yeah, I see what you're saying. They're going to get a player who's going to cost significantly less. But I think with the cap going up in relation to like with what Fife said over there, I don't know if that's too much of a consideration in terms of how much you're getting out of your money. I think Mikko Rantan's a guy, he can drive his own line. He can drive so much. And I just don't think if you're going to take on that much, like if you're going to pay Martin Necas, let's say you give him $9 million, I'd rather pay Mikko Rantanen in 14 and just have him drive the bus for my team. And maybe what we've seen with Colorado is they look at a team like the Leafs and they see, okay, Makar's coming off in the next few years. We're going to pay him as opposed to Rantanen because we don't want to have like 3 guys making a grand total of like $45 million. Yeah, I think it also has something to do with paying himself more than McKinnon. That wouldn't settle well. Yeah, and I think Nathan McKinnon's such a psychotic, competitive guy where, this guy won't let his teammates drink a beer, eat a candy bar, where that wouldn't quite sit well with him. And I think the greatest evidence of that, Barry, is you think about what Nathan McKinnon signed for and when he signed it. Nathan McKinnon signed for $12.6 million. And you think, okay, 12.6, that's an odd number. But at the time he signed the contract, Nathan McKinnon was making 12.5. And for Connor McDavid was making 12.5. And for Nathan McKinnon to go into that contract negotiation saying, I don't care what I get, I just want to be the highest paid player in the world. Just because it wasn't about the money, it was about the status. And I think that's such an interesting wrinkle in how that might affect the locker room. But I think with Cale Makar, I think that might be a different conversation. Should the Jets try and get Zibanejad? I think Zibanejad's an interesting one because he is a guy. He's a guy who is. He's got no move, and I think that's kind of the big hurdle. I think he loves in New York. He's a DJ, if you don't know, so he kind of gets a lot of opportunity in that way. He seems like who's the guy in. There's a guy in the NBA and he just loves horses and he won a championship and all he could talk about was going to be with his horses. And I feel like that's Zibanejad in terms of the NHL, where this is just his day job. And it's just such an interesting, I think that's an interesting idea, but I just don't think that him performing at where he's at, wrong side of 30, I don't think that's a contract you want to take on. It kind of, because if that goes wrong, you kind of close the window shut. And then we got, what would it take to get Barzal? I think it depends on if he's actually on the block. There were those rumors that they are interested, but like the Jets are also interested in Connor McDavid. So who knows if that was a two-way street or if it was a highway or a bike path. But I think any conversation for Barzal starts with Cole Perfetti and maybe even adding Brad Lambert to that. And I would still do that 100% day of the week because, again, I think getting the better players kind of raises the floor. And I think, especially with the Winnipeg Jets, they have so much depth right now that it's not about getting more players. It's not about filling out the depth. It's about compacting some of those guys, some of those prospects to build up to another really impactful player to really round out that second line. Because I think when the playoffs roll around, if you have Perfetti, Nemestikov, and Ehlers as your second line, you're not going to get too far there. Barry says, I mean, there's got to be a reason. So it's a combination of some of this and something we don't know. Yeah, there's always that like interesting thing with professional sports, unless it's like the NBA and stuff like that, or sometimes the NFL, where it's a little bit more transparent on those behind the door reasons. But I also think that because we don't know those things, we just have to assume what we have. And I think it's like, and I think like what you said, Barry, it's a combination of those things, and especially the contracts that are coming off the books, and they might be looking for to kind of raise their ceiling in other ways, or just set them up for like a second window, like what the Bruins did in like the mid 2015s, when they kind of reset for a couple years and then really went for it again later, went to the final in 2019 against the Blues and ultimately lost. Fife says washed. I believe that was in terms to Mika Zibanejad. I kind of tend to agree. Baby Yoda says Jets got to sign Ehlers because I bet you Colorado would be gunning for him come the offseason. Absolutely. Especially if they lose, you lose Ranton and they might lose some other players. If they get, they shed that Landeskog contract in the same way that the Jets shed the Brian Little contract, it gives them more roster flexibility. And that'd be a really interesting. Actually, that would really suck for me personally if he went over there, because I feel like they'd kind of. Oh, and you know what? It would be actually okay. Picture this. If that comes true, what Baby Yoda just said about going out and getting the Colorado Avalanche going out and getting Nikolai Ehlers, they've already reunited McKinnon with Drouin. What if they reunited Drouin with Ehlers from their Halifax Moosehead days? I think that would be very fun from a hockey fan, but not as much as a Jets fan. We got True North Ducky in here. That was kind of hoping we would get Nikish super fast, defensively responsible, and has offense. Yeah, I believe he's a point per game this season. Everyone assumed Nick doesn't want to sign in Winnipeg. I mean, that's something we don't know too. I think one thing we said on the last show with Nick, I'll go backwards here. One thing we said on the last show is one thing that was apparent at the end of last season, something Chevy said, is that when he started negotiating with guys, everyone else who was an upcoming free agent was kind of didn't really respond to it well. I know Brandon Dillon was very upset about not being negotiated with when everyone else was, but I think with that as well, with the cap going up so much in terms of what the teams can do, it really changes your long-term plans to sign a guy like that. And for the player side, I think that knowing what the cap is, you can really maximize what you're going to earn. So I don't think that we can close the door on it just yet. I think there's also a little bit more of a story to be told in terms of Nikolai Ehlers signing there. And then True North Ducky also says, I was hoping we'd get Nikish, super fast, defensively responsible, and has offense. So yeah, Nikish was wonderful. They made a pitch for him in the summer. We know that to be true. But they were kind of turned off by the lack of contract extension, and the same went for Buffalo. We got Baby Yoda. We can't do a half measure and get a player like Monahan again. Yeah, and I think that too. Like, you look at how many times the Winnipeg Jets have gone out, traded a first for a second line center, and traded all these assets for one thing. When let's say for example, it costs you 4 first-round picks to get someone, whatever that player is, if it's Elias Pettersson, I don't know, but wouldn't that be just that efficiency that, and I'm using hyperbole or I'm over exaggerating, wouldn't that be a more efficient way to solve your problem than just going out every year and knowing you have that issue when you can solve it one time, not have to worry about it again? And that would also, just as a fan, give you a whole lot more kind of what's it called, a whole lot more like at ease, because you know you're going to that playoff series every single year with these guys, and you can kind of solve additional problems. Because if it's like if you go into a house, right, and there is termites, right, and you spend way too much time on the termites, but then you tent it, you do all this stuff, and then your plumbing's not working. It's like, oh, I didn't know the plumbing was like, I didn't know we had this issue with the plumbing because I was so focused on the termites, and it might reveal other things that you didn't really know about it because you solved that problem. And we got Baby Yoda. Oh, Monahan wasn't the type of player we need for a playoff run. Yeah, I think he was just a little slow, and I think he's having a super good year this year, actually. I think he was really good on the power play, but his speed kind of limited his speed kind of limited his effectiveness in a playoff series against Montreal specifically. Baby Yoda says the thing about Ehlers is he's playing on a really good team, so why would he want to leave? Yeah, and I think his role's been expanded too, right? I think if you look at other guys on good teams, you look at a guy like Evgeny Malkin, completely different player, but Evgeny Malkin's never been a first-line guy except when Sidney Crosby is out, but he's always been on that first power play, so it's kind of a different role that way. And I think similarly, Ehlers being on the power play, getting all these points, doing all these things, I think that changes the conversation too, because suddenly, because getting points is super in relation to your ice time more than anything. And with him getting that power play time and being a point per game, he can finally okay, if I'm happy here, that's great. I'm getting my points. I can get the money, because money is important for these guys that are only working until they're like 35, 36, 37, if you're really lucky. And it kind of solves a lot of problem for that. All right, and then he says, gotta run. I'll watch the rest of the show in the morning. Yeah, thanks, True North Ducky. Thanks for stopping by. Leave a comment if you have anything else to add. We might be able to read it on Sunday when the Jets play the Flames. Bleed Champagne says, because 27 has been underutilized for years. Yeah, that's true. They really didn't trust him on the first power play unit, and then never elevated him except for injuries. First year he was on the first power play, and he is 28. Absolutely. Okay, so we are going to move over to the fourth period now, the overtime period. This is the part of the show where you can ask me anything you want, anything you would like. And it can be about hockey, it can be about non-hockey things. I was gonna bring out some stuff from a book, not my book, but the book I'm reading by Craig Cousins on NHL general managers. We'll get to that someday. I gotta finish the book though. Before that, what's a better way to support something than by repping it on yourself? Game Over's apparel line has dropped with 3 unique designs. Whether you feel a nostalgic pull of our retro skater design, want to make a statement with our established design, or want to wear your love of goalies proudly with our live and die by the goalie design, or if you just need another coffee and toque to get you through the winter, we have you covered. Designed by Brady Chalice of Game Over Winnipeg. Use the QR code on stream now. Boom, and I can give you some little sneak peeks of some of our merch there. That hoodie's got to move. Use the QR code on stream now to have a look through our apparel store and help us rebuild local sports media in Canada while repping your community. I'm keeping the mug up there. I love the mug more than anything. People know that. All right. So let's talk about questions. We got one here from Scott White. He says, part of me wonders if the Hawks will make another deal. They want to unload Hall's contract. I think that's interesting because they got rid of Hall's contract, but they also took on $5 million of salary in terms of the Mikko Rantanen half of it. So it felt like they really just kind of let themselves open up a roster spot and got $1 million. They might use that to just retain on someone else. I'm not sure what the retention slots look like right now. But interesting to see from a roster perspective. Maybe they bring in someone to play with Bedard for the rest of the season, because they got to start thinking about, he's eligible for an extension July 1st, and you got to start thinking about what that starts to look like, because they've not had any success, and not like Connor McDavid. And in Connor McDavid's second year, they went to the second round at least. Baby says, did the Jets stop playing Logan Stanley and have Miller play on a consistent basis? What the heck is going on when you have Miller and you have Fleury? You don't need to play Logan Stanley. Yeah, for sure. I especially think they need to trade to get another left-handed defenseman. I think their top 4 is pretty set in terms of what they're comfortable with. I think Colin Miller is someone who is underutilized. He's been underutilized his whole career, and whenever he plays, I love him. He's so good. He's so consistent. That shot is so fun to watch. I wish he might use it a little less, but when you have a bullet like that, you let it fly. It's just really fun to watch, and I think he's such a stud. Fall in love with Oli Mata on these last few games with against the Utah Hockey Club. I kind of really enjoy his game. He has some really nice moments over the past few. And with Logan Stanley, I don't know. We try to be nice to him on the show. It's not his fault he's playing. He had a nice play after he turned over the puck, but I just think you saw that one turnover earlier today, and you just think about the playoffs. You're like, if you're in a tie game, if you're in a tight game like that, and that's the play you make, I don't know what we can do for you, man. Like, that's so tough to see, and you really don't want your season ending because your team won't let go of this prospect that obviously isn't good enough to be in the NHL. And I mean, you see it, I see it, and it's just like us as fans, like, we can be wrong. We're definitely no like hockey experts, but I think it also shouldn't take a hockey expert to be like, hey, that guy just can't play, and he can't. And And also, it doesn't take just like it doesn't take a baker to know when a cake sucks, it doesn't take a professional hockey scout to know when a player isn't great. Fife says, in the opinion, can the Jets offer for Pettersson? I'm aware it's unlikely. I think they should be offering anything they can, anything that isn't nailed to the ground. I think the only untouchables in that trade are Mark Scheifele. He's got no move. You got to keep him. And like he just signed that deal. Mark Scheifele, Connor Hellebuyck, Josh Morrissey, and I would trade absolutely anyone else to get Elias Pettersson. I think that trading Kyle Connor would be sufficient enough to get it done. I think Cole Perfetti would be out the door. I would drive him to the airport myself. And I think Brad Lambert can be in that. I think Colby Barlow, he scored 4 goals tonight in the OHL. Let him go. Jaeger, I just don't care. Just get this guy while you have these guys. Because the Jets are on a ticking clock with these Hellebuyck and Scheifele contracts. You got to get it going while the getting's good. Scott White says, how much truth is behind Taze coming back to Winnipeg? I don't know. But I think one thing with that too is they kind of shut that down with reports the last few days. Apparently he's coming back next season. So I'm sure we'll get more clarity on that in the summer as opposed to right now. I forgot to switch this to the 4th period thing. There we go. But yeah, I don't know what that would look like. It would probably be like a league minimum contract with some bonus structure. But I also think that with Taze, he might look for a team that is known for its medical team. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see him in Toronto, which is something I said last, just because they are known for having the best medical staff in the league. It's why they get guys like Joe Thornton, Jason Spezza, and like Tyler Ennis back in the day, because they're there and they can just rehab with the best medical teams in the NHL. All right, and if no other questions kind of pop up here, thank you guys so much for watching. Very fun and interactive show today. Lots to talk about. The next Game Over Winnipeg live stream is after the game on Sunday. It will be me. It'll be Ruby from Game Over Calgary. The game is at 5, so our show will be live at about 7:45. Might be a little earlier, might be a little later. Don't sue me. And with that, yeah, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Game Over Winnipeg. It is such a free and easy way to support the channel. Really appreciate you guys commenting. Very fun to have you guys a little bit back and forth. Super excellent, super great. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.